Hello to everyone watching, day or night. As you might have guessed, in this video I'm going to continue my rebunk of Doey and debunk Fox Gaming 121 for the second time. Please excuse the delay. I thought a couple of days would be enough time to gather some things and improve the video quality, but it seems I needed more. Even so, don't worry, because this time I'm going to address all the remaining points of his video. It's important to clarify that, regardless of the fact that I'm refuting the argument and the video in general, this material should not be taken as an attack or incitement to hatred towards Fox Gaming 121. In fact, his attitude towards the previous video made it clear to me that he is a mature and respectful person, enough to warrant the same treatment. Now then, let's get started.
See, Doey literally gets damaged by fire in his boss fight. If you shoot him, he screams a bit, and doing it again and again is what makes you free from his grip. Doey is weak to fire, which is thermal energy, so being made of dough clay doesn't make him immune to physical attacks or gives limited resistance or something similar.
The irony is that in the clip you use, Doey is shot several times and only one frees us. Going even further, Doey isn't affected by the flares when shot on other occasions. You could argue that this wasn't planned in the story or that these events aren't canon, but then you'd have to disregard the deaths that occur in the game since they aren't part of the canon, and therefore Poppy Playtime's power scale would change drastically. No, it's not a game bug. Doey doesn't release us for being harmed, rather because he's bothered. Plus, in less than 2 seconds, he's still running. As if that weren't enough, his previous version is immune to the effects a flare shot might have, and as much as you use it to say that Doey in his base form is stronger than in his stalker form, the reason he is immune in one and the other is not doesn't exist, and the material of what is made still the same. Whatever the reason, what we know is that Doey is not affected by these attacks except in a specific area of his body and several times. Isn't it weird?
The fallen debris hurt Doey. We can clearly know this is true since his voice lines literally says, moans and screams in pain, after the debris falls on him. Some are trying to argue it wasn't physical, which is untrue. And I'm going to explain why that is. It happened after the debris fell on Doey. Doey's voice came right after he broke out of it, although it took few seconds, but he OFC won't be screaming consistently while struggling breaking through it, which proves the debris was reducing his voice enough that the player won't be able to hear it.
One of the most interesting things about this scene is that the subtitles remain even while Doey is roaring. Yes, the subtitles indicate that Doey screams in pain while making the same sound as his jump scare, which translates to Doey actually screaming in pain while eating us, right? In my opinion, no, and this is for a very simple reason. In this scene, Doey transforms from his base form into a more grotesque, savage, and unstable one in the brief moment when the ceiling collapses on him. Whether it's a defensive reaction, a response to pain, a sign of Doey's mental breakdown, or whatever, it happens in this instant. My point is that, regardless of Doey screaming in pain, it is most likely that this pain was caused by the circumstances he was in mentally after the transformation. And yes, you could say you demonstrated that his pain was physical, but you overlooked the fact that Doey's transformation was underway and that he was also undergoing a psychological transformation, especially with his dialogue at the end where he displays traits of schizophrenia and dementia.
Everything's too loud! Too loud!
Something that is barely evident in his base state, even in the VHS where he kills his parents. In conclusion, while he not only emerged unscathed from the dust and rocks, he also underwent a physical and psychological transformation. Trying to deny this falls into the fallacy of post hoc ergo propter hoc, which consists of asserting that one event causes another simply because it occurs first, even in the face of a lack of evidence beyond a visual comparison with the actual scene of a human being experiencing pain after being injured.
Well, I'm not saying Pianosaurus beats Doey, I'm just saying it's closer than you think. Via this comic, it's also implied Pianosaurus is extremely heavy and his main power is to crush his victims, one of the things he couldn't do against Doey. In a fight, Crime Stalker would high diff Pianosaurus, while base Doey will low mid diff Pianosaurus. Although Pianosaurus is likely above Stalker physically, also faster, I'm not even 100% sure about Stalker winning.
As a WIS-type video editor, I imagine you're familiar with the other functionalities in each power scaling category: strength, speed, intelligence, flexibility, skill, and so on. These aspects are almost equally important, so these advantages shouldn't be considered unfair or that the fight would be closer without them. As long as the abilities within Doey's arsenal are taken into account, I don't see this narrowing the power gap. Furthermore, Pianosaurus's mass never dissipated under Doey's blows, so he carried it in his arms multiple times without apparent difficulty, and the fact that it's so heavy puts it well above characters with low lifting strength. And no, Pianosaurus isn't faster than Doey's stalker version. The dinosaur is comparable to a moderately athletic human, while Doey was chasing the prototype, losing sight of it at one point but staying right on its heels for quite a while. Furthermore, it can cover distances of tens of meters in seconds by leaping, and I don't know if I need to explain that leaping is also a form of movement, transportation, and therefore speed.
About the monster form being weaker, it's never implied he's stronger than normal Doey. It's literally a crash out. What makes him stronger? Size, appearance. Well, I might have just agreed that he'll be above base because of it, which isn't the case. First, base Doey endures fire, stalker Doey can't. Second, base Doey takes a way shorter time to. Stalker's mass isn't increased, it's just extended and filled up in a larger area. As it's the same body with shapeshift like dough, does the weight change if the dough molts into something else if the amount is the same? No, it just means stalker Doey is softer. We shouldn't forget that it's literally just him crashing out.
I want to open up my opinion. For me, Stalker Doey and the base Doey are equally powerful. I don't think his monstrous version is stronger for the reasons you've explained here, but he's not weaker either. The issue is that Doey is exposed to his worst weaknesses by being attacked simultaneously. It's not just that he's in an unstable and enraged state, but he's constantly attacked, even to the point of literal death. The base Doey isn't stronger, he simply doesn't suffer this barrage of attacks. What I mean is that if the base Doey were to face millions of hydrogen cylinders freezing him, chainsaws slashing him while he's frozen, flares fired into his mouth, and a mental breakdown, he would have the same outcome as the first version.
Both Pianosaurus and Yarnaby attack the player, but Doey only kills Pianosaurus, but why? Both did the same thing. Lol, he literally avoids to face Yarnaby. He backtracks his arm quickly like he'll not get attacked XD. Doey clearly shows he's afraid and doesn't want to get noticed by Yarnaby. Straight up fear. Doey was in Matthew's personality, because he wanted to help us. He was trying to guild instead of taking down Yarnaby like he did with Pianosaurus. It's even stated in the VHS tapes.
I'll show you a funny scene.
He's outside! Who's... Oh no. You need to distract him, Doey. Please, keep him away from here.
Without the generator!
Can't get in here. That's out. Just buy us some time. You'll have to fix the generator. Work quickly. We won't have a lot of time.
But I...
Trust us, Doey. Trust me.
Just get the generator working. Please.
Well, as you've probably noticed, Doey is willing to face the prototype without suggesting any alternatives, and he has the responsibility of protecting the toys as well as the player. Since Doey wasn't scared, knowing he could push it to its limits, it's very likely that Yarnaby is much stronger than the prototype, right? That's where the point becomes absurd. The only two times Doey appears alongside Yarnaby are with the player in front of him, in an area that's very crowded, even for him, and through which it should take him a long time to enter for a fight. That's the gist of the story. If Doey is inferior to Yarnaby, you should accept that the prototype is also inferior, and it's well known that this doesn't make sense. For power scaling based on emotional arguments, it's best to consider the context and evaluate other hypothetical situations before accepting this argument. No, Doey isn't inferior to Yarnaby, his feats are far superior, and his abilities are enough to warrant the Pianosaurus treatment.
So he gets negged by the prototype so badly he even acted like he fears the prototype. When Doey meets you after you defeat the doctor, he says he lost prototype's track, which doesn't justify the argument. It doesn't mean Doey was chasing him or something. It needs context. It's also contracted by being below Yarnaby.
It's funny how you mention the exact point I used to counter the previous one. Yes, Doey is quite inferior to the prototype. However, I don't know if you understand what kind of distraction Poppy was planning, and it definitely wasn't Doey making flowers and sticking onto her metal legs. And well, to lose track of someone, I suppose you first have to follow a trail. This trail, for obvious reasons, wasn't a scent trail or any visual clue because in Chapter 4 we saw him walking around the facility and leaving nothing behind. Now, as a final conclusion, I want to make it clear that Doey is in my top 5 in Poppy Playtime, top 4 considering abilities. Anyway, this debunk wasn't the worst of all, it just needs a deeper analysis and a focus on objectivity. Without further ado, thank you very much for staying until the end. Don't forget to subscribe and give it a big like if you enjoyed this content. I accept advice, criticism, and support, as long as it's respectful and polite. Now, your friend says goodbye.